A house of business, a house of prayer. John chapter 2, verse 13 and 14. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found men selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. When we think of Jesus, we often picture him as kind and caring. So when we talk about living like Jesus, we usually think of him as someone who's always good, full of love. Like it says in 1 Corinthians 13, he's someone who doesn't get angry, is super kind, never uses harsh words, and we can't really imagine him being violent. But if you actually look at the Bible, you'll see that Jesus wasn't always gentle. In fact, he could be pretty harsh, especially when dealing with legalists. He wasn't always quiet or soft-spoken. Sometimes he called out people with strong words. Today's scripture also reveals a more intense side of Jesus. As the Passover approached, he went up to Jerusalem. When he arrived, he saw something shocking. People were selling cattle, sheep, and doves right in the temple courts. There were also money changers doing business, helping travelers who had come from far away to offer sacrifices. John chapter 2, verse 15 and 16. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple area, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned the tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get this out of here. How dare you turn my Father's house into a market?" When Jesus saw this sin, he reacted with sudden and forceful action, something that must have stunned the people around him. From his perspective, what was happening in the temple was completely unacceptable. He made a whip out of cords and drove out the sheep and cattle. He overturned the tables of the money changers and told those selling doves to take everything away. Then he said, "How dare you turn my Father's house into a market?" The people selling animals for sacrifices or exchanging money in the table were likely making a profit. In itself, this wasn't necessarily wrong. They were providing a service. After all, it would have been difficult for those traveling from far away to bring their own cattle, sheep, and doves for the sacrifices. So what was wrong with making things easier for them? Yet despite the convenience they were offering, Jesus was furious. What then was the real issue? Luke chapter 19, verse 45 and 46. Then he entered the temple area and began driving out those who were selling. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." This same incident is also mentioned in the Gospel of Luke, where Jesus is even more direct. He says that the people had turned the temple into a den of robbers. In fact, this message still applies today. If religion were reduced to nothing more than a way to make money, it would be met with strong disapproval. And Jesus was absolutely firm on this point. Do you know about the indulgences that sparked the religious reformation in the 16th century? At the time, Pope Leo X began selling indulgences to fund the construction of St. Peter's Basilica. Priests would preach that if someone repented and donated money, their sins would be forgiven. They even claimed the moment your coin clinks into the offering box, you'll be saved from the flames of hell, and your loved ones in purgatory will be freed and go to heaven. How does the story sound to you? It might seem normal for sacrifices to be sold and money exchanged for offering in the temple. And what about today? Is the Christianity you see, the church you see, a place of business or a house of prayer? The purpose of business is profit, and Jesus didn't take issue with business itself. His problem was with business being conducted in the temple. That's why he drove them all out. Simply put, Jesus made it clear he wouldn't tolerate anyone using the temple for personal gain. This may seem unclear, but today the church is often criticized for being overly focused on materialism. While people don't come to church to do business or buy and sell, often the focus of faith becomes more about gaining material or worldly benefits. Many people pray, hoping that the Lord will help them succeed in the business, in their children's lives, to secure a better job, have a stable income, or move into a better house. Because of this, Christians are sometimes seen by non-believers as being more focused on greed and worldly things than non-believers themselves. In a way, those who do business in the temple to make money and those who leave their faith not to connect with God or treat the church as a house of prayer but to gain wealth and success might not be so different. If the purpose of faith isn't about deep prayer in relationship with God, but about gaining material things, what would the Lord say or do to the church today? This was today's meditation.